Part 2 of Omar's Chronicle, The Painful Confession. The days following Ngozi's burial were some of the loneliest Omar had ever experienced. Although she now lived in a mansion filled with people, she had never felt more alone. The atmosphere inside the house had completely changed. Laughter had disappeared. Conversations became brief and cold. Even the servants moved around quietly, as if afraid of disturbing the grief that hung over every room. Omar stayed mostly in her bedroom. She did not know where she belonged. She did not know what she was supposed to do. Every morning she woke up hoping things would somehow improve. Every night she went to bed disappointed. Chief Okafor barely acknowledged her existence. Whenever they crossed paths, he either ignored her completely or looked at her with eyes full of resentment. Those eyes hurt more than any insult. Because behind them was a message she could clearly understand. You took my wife away from me. One morning, about 2 weeks after the funeral, Omar gathered enough courage to approach him. He was sitting alone in his study reviewing documents. She stood quietly at the doorway. Father. The word felt strange on her tongue. Chief Okafor did not look up. What is it? I wanted to thank you for allowing me to stay here. Still, he did not look at her. A long silence followed. Finally he spoke. You don't need to thank me. Omar waited. Nothing else came. Slowly she turned and walked away. As she reached the door, his voice stopped her. You are here because it is my responsibility. She turned back hopefully. Then he added. Not because I want you here. The hope immediately vanished. She nodded quietly and left. That night she cried herself to sleep. If Chief Okafor treated her like a burden, Chike treated her like an enemy. He was 18 years old and deeply attached to his mother's memory. In his mind, Omar had destroyed everything. One afternoon she found him sitting alone in the garden. Gathering courage, she approached him. Hello. Chike looked up. His expression hardened instantly. What do you want? Omar sat cautiously on a nearby bench. I know things are difficult. Don't. She blinked. Don't what? Pretend you care. I do care. He laughed bitterly. You care. His voice rose. My mother is dead. Omar lowered her head. I know. And you expect me to be your friend? I never said that. Good. He stood up. Because I don't have a sister. The words struck her like a slap. Without another word, he walked away. Omar remained there for a long time. Staring at the empty bench. Trying not to cry. School became her only refuge. When the new term began, Chief Okafor enrolled her in one of the best secondary schools in the city. On her first day, she felt nervous. The students came from wealthy families. Many arrived in expensive cars. Some wore designer watches worth more than everything she and her mother had ever owned. Yet something amazing happened. Once classes began, none of that mattered. Because intelligence could not be bought. Within weeks Omar distinguished herself. She answered difficult questions. Solved complex mathematical problems. Impressed teachers with her essays. Her classmates quickly noticed. So did her teachers. Omar is exceptional, one teacher remarked. One of the brightest students we've seen. For the first time since arriving at the mansion, she felt valued. Respected. Seen. Unfortunately, there was one person who did not appreciate her success. Chike. The two attended the same school. Unlike Omar, Chike struggled academically. He preferred football, parties, and socializing. Studying bored him. Assignments irritated him. Examinations terrified him. When the first term results were released, Omar ranked first in her class. Check barely passed. The comparison became unavoidable. Teachers praised Omar constantly. Meanwhile, Check received warnings about his declining performance. It humiliated him. And that humiliation gradually transformed into resentment. One evening, both report cards were presented to Chief Okafor. Omar sat nervously in the living room. Her heart pounded. Perhaps this time things would be different. Perhaps her father would finally be proud of her. Chief Okafor examined her report card. His eyes widened slightly. Every subject showed excellent grades. Outstanding performance. Teacher recommendations. Academic awards. For several seconds he remained silent. Omar waited hopefully. Then he placed the report card aside. Without a single word of praise. He turned his attention to Chaik's results. His expression softened immediately. "Don't worry, son." Chaik sighed dramatically. "I'll do better next term." "I know you will." Chief Okafor placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You've been through a difficult year." Omar stared in disbelief. That was all? She had worked harder than she ever had in her life. She had achieved excellence. Yet her father acted as though it meant nothing. Meanwhile, Chaik received comfort despite poor performance. The unfairness hurt deeply. But she remained silent. Later that night she stood outside her father's study. The report card was still on his desk. Part of her wanted to walk away. But another part desperately needed his approval. She knocked softly. "Come in." Entering cautiously, she found him reading. "Father." "What is it?" "I was wondering." She hesitated. He looked up impatiently. "Wondering what?" "What you thought about my results." A strange expression crossed his face. Then it disappeared. "They were fine." "Fine. Just fine." Omar felt her chest tighten. "I came first." "I know. I worked very hard." Chief Emeka looked away. "Good." That was all. No congratulations. No smile. No pride. Nothing. She nodded slowly. "Good night, father." As she turned to leave, she heard him speak quietly. "You should focus on staying humble." Omar stopped. "What do you mean?" He finally looked directly at her. "The world doesn't revolve around academic success." His tone carried a hidden meaning. One she understood perfectly. No matter what she achieved, it would never be enough. Months turned into years. Omar continued excelling. Every examination. Every competition. Every scholarship opportunity. She succeeded. Teachers loved her. Students admired her. Principals celebrated her accomplishments. Meanwhile, Chaik's performance continued declining. He repeated a class. Then nearly repeated another. Yet Chief Okafor remained fiercely protective of him. Whenever Chaik made mistakes, excuses appeared. Whenever Omar succeeded, silence followed. The imbalance became impossible to ignore. One evening a family friend visited the mansion. During dinner, he turned to Chief Okafor. "I hear Omar is brilliant." Chief Okafor nodded politely. "She's doing all right." The man laughed. "Doing all right. She won the state science competition." Omar smiled awkwardly. The visitor continued. "That girl has a bright future." For a brief moment, Omar glanced hopefully at her father. Perhaps he would finally say something kind. Instead, Chief Okafor changed the subject. The disappointment settled heavily inside her heart. Despite everything, Oma never stopped trying. She helped around the house. She respected her father. She obeyed rules. She avoided arguments. She did everything possible to earn his love. But nothing worked. Years passed. The distance remained. Sometimes she wondered if he even saw her as his daughter, or merely as a painful reminder of the day his wife died. One rainy evening, while studying in her room, Oma stared at an old photograph of herself and her mother. She remembered the small room, the poverty, the struggles. Oddly enough, she missed it. Because even though life had been hard, she had been loved. Truly loved. Here in the mansion she had comfort, security, luxury. But no affection. No acceptance. No family. Tears rolled down her cheeks. For the first time, she began wondering if her father would ever love her. Deep down, a painful answer was already forming. Perhaps he never would. And that realization would soon become one of the greatest heartbreaks of her life. By the time Oma turned 21, she had become a remarkable young woman. Beautiful, intelligent, graceful, strong. Yet the wound inside her heart remained unchanged. The wound left by a father who could provide everything except the one thing she desired most: his love. By the time Oma turned 21, her name had become known far beyond her school. Teachers spoke proudly about her achievements. Students admired her intelligence. Parents used her as an example when encouraging their children to study harder. Wherever she went, people noticed her. Yet the one person whose approval she desperately wanted remained unmoved: Chief Okafor. Every achievement Oma earned seemed to disappear into silence whenever it reached her father's ears. Still, she refused to give up. Somewhere deep inside her heart, she believed that if she worked hard enough, if she became successful enough, he would eventually see her worth. He would eventually accept her. At least, that was what she hoped. Her final year at secondary school arrived. The year that would determine her future. Students throughout the country prepared for the most important examinations of their academic lives. Many felt nervous. Others felt overwhelmed. But Oma approached her studies with determination. Every day she woke before dawn. She reviewed notes before breakfast. She studied during breaks. She stayed awake late into the night. Sometimes the house would be completely silent except for the turning of pages in her room. The servants often worried about her. "You need rest," one elderly housekeeper told her. Oma smiled. "I'll rest after the exams." The woman shook her head. "You study too much." Oma laughed softly. "Maybe." But she continued. Because excellence had become more than a goal. It had become her identity. The one thing nobody could take away from her. Meanwhile, Chike was moving in the opposite direction. At 23, he was still struggling academically. His lack of discipline had finally begun catching up with him. He spent most of his time with friends. Parties fascinated him. Nightlife excited him. Studying bored him. Whenever Oma passed his room, she often found loud music playing while textbooks remained untouched. One evening she knocked gently on his door. "What?" She entered cautiously. "I noticed exams are coming." Chike rolled his eyes. "And I thought maybe we could study together." The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Then Chike laughed. A cold, Mocking laugh. You want to help me? Omar nodded. Yes. His expression hardened. I don't need your help. I'm only trying to. I said I don't need it. Omar sighed. You know, we are family. Chike stood abruptly. No. His voice was sharp. We are not family. The words hurt. Even after all these years. Still. Omar forced a smile. If you change your mind, I'm available. She turned and left. Behind her, the door slammed shut. The examination results were released 3 months later. The entire school gathered in excitement. Students crowded around notice boards. Teachers moved through groups of anxious teenagers. Parents called constantly. Everyone wanted to know the outcome. Omar stood quietly among the crowd. Her heart raced. No matter how confident she felt, moments like this always brought anxiety. Then she saw it. Her name. At the very top. Not only had she passed, she had achieved one of the highest scores in the state. The crowd erupted. Omar. Congratulations. You did it. Teachers rushed forward. Students surrounded her. Several girls hugged her. Even some boys applauded. For a brief moment, happiness overwhelmed her. Years of hard work had finally paid off. Then she looked down the list, searching for another name. Chike. Her heart sank. He had failed again. News of Omar's success spread quickly. Local newspapers published her story. Educational organizations contacted her. Scholarship opportunities began arriving. University admissions officers expressed interest. The principal proudly invited her onto the stage during a special assembly. In front of hundreds of students, she received an award for academic excellence. The applause seemed endless. Yet as she stood there holding her certificate, one thought occupied her mind. I hope Father is proud. That evening she returned home carrying several awards. The servants welcomed her warmly. We saw the newspaper. Congratulations. You've made the family proud. Omar smiled. For the first time in years, she felt genuinely happy. Then Chief Okafor arrived home. Immediately everyone grew quiet. Omar stood. Father. He nodded. His eyes landed briefly on the certificates. I heard. The words felt encouraging. At least initially. I came first in the state. I know. I received a scholarship offer. That's good. Omar waited. Expecting more. Hoping for more. Nothing came. Chief Okafor simply walked past her toward his study. The excitement inside her immediately faded. A few minutes later she followed him. Standing at the doorway, she held one of her certificates. Father. He looked up. What is it? She stepped forward. I wanted to show you this. He glanced at the document. Then nodded. Very impressive. For a moment hope returned. Then he added. You should thank God. The conversation ended there. No smile. No hug. No pride. Nothing. Omar left the study feeling emptier than before. That night she sat alone on her balcony. The city lights shimmered in the distance. A gentle breeze moved through the darkness. Yet none of it comforted her. She stared at her awards spread across the table. Each represented years of sacrifice. Years of effort. Years of determination. Still, they had failed to achieve the one thing she wanted most. Her father's love. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. She looked up. It was the elderly housekeeper. "May I come in?" Oma nodded. The woman sat beside her. For several moments neither spoke. Then the woman sighed. "You remind me of someone." Oma smiled weakly. "Who?" "Your mother." The words caught her attention immediately. "You knew my mother?" The woman nodded. "A little." Oma leaned forward. "What was she like?" The old woman smiled. "Strong. Kind. Stubborn." Oma laughed softly. "That sounds familiar." The housekeeper's expression became gentle. "Your mother loved you very much." Tears filled Obayoma's eyes. "I know." The woman looked at the awards. "She would be proud of you." The old woman took her hand. "Everything will be fine." Months later, Oma began university. She quickly distinguished herself once again. Her professors praised her intelligence. Her classmates admired her discipline. Academic awards continued accumulating. Opportunities multiplied. Meanwhile, Chaik's situation worsened. Unable to complete his studies successfully, he drifted from one failed venture to another. Business ideas collapsed. Jobs ended quickly. Responsibility remained foreign to him. Yet Chief Okofor continued defending him. "He'll figure things out. He just needs time. He's a good boy." Oma listened quietly whenever such conversations occurred. Not because she agreed, but because she had learned something important. Her father saw Chaik through the eyes of love. And he saw her through the eyes of grief. No amount of achievement could compete with that. Years passed. Oma graduated from university with distinction. She received multiple awards. Her future appeared bright. During graduation, proud parents celebrated alongside their children. Fathers hugged daughters. Mothers cried tears of joy. Photographs captured unforgettable moments. Chief Okofor attended. He sat among the audience. Watched her receive her honors. Clapped politely. And afterward, simply said, "Congratulations." Nothing more. That evening, as Oma sat alone in her room, she finally admitted a painful truth. Perhaps no achievement would ever be enough. Perhaps she could become the most successful woman in the country and still fail to earn her father's affection. The realization frightened her. Because if success couldn't win his love, then what could? And for the first time, she began considering a future that did not revolve around pleasing him. A future where she could stop chasing acceptance. A future where she could finally choose herself. The years had passed quickly. Oma was now a young woman admired by many and respected wherever she went. She had graduated from university with distinction and was already building a promising career. People often described her as intelligent, graceful, and hardworking. Whenever she entered a room, she carried herself with quiet confidence. To the outside world, Oma appeared successful. But beneath her calm exterior lived a wound that had never healed. A wound caused by one man. Her father. Chief Okofor. Despite all her accomplishments, despite all the years she had spent trying to please him, his attitude toward her remained unchanged. He was never openly cruel anymore. He no longer shouted. He no longer looked at her with the same raw anger he once did. But he remained distant. Cold. detached. The affection she longed for was never there. And the older she became, the more painful that reality felt. One evening, Oma returned home from work carrying exciting news. The company where she worked had promoted her. It was a major achievement. At her young age, very few people received such recognition. Her colleagues celebrated. Her supervisor praised her. Even the company's director personally congratulated her. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope. Maybe this time her father would be proud. Maybe this achievement would finally break the wall between them. She found him sitting in the living room reading a newspaper. "Good evening, father." He lowered the paper slightly. "Good evening." Oma sat opposite him. "I received a promotion today." He nodded. "That's good." Her smile faded slightly. "It's a very important position. I'm happy for you." Again, his tone was polite. Nothing more. Nothing less. Like a stranger congratulating another stranger. Oma's heart sank. She forced a smile. "Thank you." Chief Okafor returned to his newspaper. The conversation ended. Just like that. Later that night, Oma sat alone in her bedroom. The promotion letter rested on her desk. Instead of feeling happy, she felt empty. A question kept echoing inside her mind. Why? Why was it never enough? Why did he celebrate Chaik's smallest efforts while ignoring her greatest achievements? Why couldn't he simply love her? The question haunted her. Day after day. Month after month. Year after year. Until finally she could no longer remain silent. She needed answers. No matter how painful they might be. A week later she found her father in the garden. The evening sun cast long shadows across the lawn. Birds chirped softly from nearby trees. It was peaceful. Perhaps the perfect moment. Oma approached him slowly. "Father." Chief Okafor looked up. "Yes. Can we talk?" Something in her voice caught his attention. He nodded. "Sit." Oma sat beside him. For several moments she struggled to find the right words. Finally she spoke. "Can I ask you something?" "What is it?" Her hands trembled slightly. But she continued. "I want an honest answer." Chief Okafor frowned. "All right." Oma took a deep breath. Then she asked the question she had carried in her heart for years. "What must I do for you to love me?" The words hung heavily in the air. Everywhere became quiet. Chief Okafor stared at her. His face revealed nothing. Oma waited anxiously. Perhaps he would finally open up. Perhaps he would explain. Perhaps there was still hope. Instead, a long silence followed. Then he looked away. His expression hardened. And when he finally spoke, his answer shattered her heart. "Nothing." Oma blinked. She wasn't sure she had heard correctly. "What?" Chief Okafor stood up slowly. "There is nothing you can do." The words struck her like a physical blow. Tears immediately filled her eyes. "Father." But he continued. "You are asking the wrong question." Her voice trembled. "What do you mean?" Chief Okafor's face looked tired. Older than she had ever seen it. "You keep trying to earn something that I cannot give." Oma stared at him. The pain inside her chest became unbearable. "Why?" For a moment, he seemed conflicted. Then he looked directly into her eyes. And she saw something there. Not hatred. Not anymore. Something worse. A grief so deep it had become permanent. When I look at you, he said quietly, I remember the day my wife died. Oma felt tears slide down her cheeks. I didn't kill her. I know. Then why punish me? Chief Okafor closed his eyes. For several seconds he said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded broken. Because every time I see you, I remember losing her. The confession pierced her heart. Not because it was cruel, but because it was honest. For the first time, she understood. His rejection had never been about her achievements. It had never been about her behavior. It had never been about whether she was worthy of love. He simply could not separate her from his pain. And because of that, she had spent years fighting a battle she could never win. That night Oma cried harder than she had cried in years. Not because she was angry. Not because she hated her father. But because hope had finally died. For years she had believed there was still something she could do. One more achievement. One more sacrifice. One more success. Now she knew the truth. Nothing would ever change his heart. Nothing. And strangely, that truth brought clarity. Painful clarity. Over the following weeks, something inside Oma changed. She stopped seeking approval. Stopped chasing affection. Stopped waiting for her father to become someone he could never be. For the first time in her life, she focused entirely on herself. Her dreams. Her future. Her happiness. The transformation was subtle, yet powerful. People noticed. She smiled more often. Laughed more freely. Seemed lighter somehow. As though a burden she had carried for years had finally been removed. Even Chief Okafor noticed. Though he never mentioned it. One Saturday afternoon, Oma attended a charity event organized by her company. The event attracted influential business leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals from across the state. She almost didn't go. But a colleague convinced her. It's good for networking. Reluctantly, she agreed. What she didn't know was that her life was about to change forever. The event took place in a luxurious hotel ballroom. Elegant decorations filled the room. Soft music played in the background. Guests mingled comfortably. Oma stood near a refreshment table speaking with colleagues when she accidentally bumped into someone. Oh, I'm sorry. The man smiled. No harm done. Oma looked up. For a moment, she forgot what she was about to say. He was tall. Well-dressed. Confident without appearing arrogant. His smile carried genuine warmth. Something she wasn't accustomed to. It's my fault, he said. I wasn't paying attention. Oma laughed softly. Then we're both guilty. The man extended his hand. My name is Daniel. She shook it. Oma. Neither of them knew it yet. But that simple introduction would mark the beginning of a love story neither had expected. A love that would finally teach Oma what it felt like to be valued. To be appreciated. To be chosen. And most importantly, to be loved. For exactly who she was. Watch out for part 3 and do not forget to like, comment and subscribe for interesting stories. Thank you for watching.